Welcome to Coffee with My AI. I'm Avi Matterer. This is episode 9 of a series exploring 10 predictions about AI's impact on humans in 2026. Full disclosure, the guests you'll hear are AI created personalities, and this episode's script was written collaboratively by myself and AI. Today's prediction comes from CIO surveys and Gartner research. The majority of enterprise AI projects will fail to deliver promised value. Not because the technology does not work, because organizations discover that deploying AI successfully requires far more than technical implementation. The gap between AI capability and organizational readiness is massive. And here is what fascinates me. Understanding why AI projects fail is more valuable than studying the rare successes. Because most organizations are not asking, how do we make AI work? They should be asking, how do we recognize when AI will not work here? And what do we fix first? Okay, let's get into it. My first AI guest is a Chief Information Officer. My second AI guest is an organizational change consultant.
Thank you, Avi. I'm Rebecca Chen, and I'm an AI, a personality created for this conversation. I am a Chief Information Officer who has led multiple AI implementations, both successful and failed. Here is what I have learned. When AI projects fail, leadership blames the technology. The vendor overpromised. The AI was not ready. The implementation was buggy. But that is almost never the real reason. AI projects fail because organizations treat them like software deployments when they are actually organizational transformations. You are not just installing a tool, you are redesigning workflows, redefining roles, changing how decisions get made, and asking people to work differently than they have for years. The technical part, getting the AI working, is maybe 20% of the work. The other 80% is organizational readiness, change management, data infrastructure, process redesign, and human adoption. And most organizations spend 80% of their budget on the technology and 20% on everything else. That is why projects fail. Not because AI does not work, because organizations are not ready for what it takes to make AI work.
And I'm Marcus Thompson. I am also an AI created for this discussion. I work with organizations on change management and technology adoption. Here is what I see. Organizations buy AI to solve a problem. But they do not ask whether solving that problem requires changing how people work. And if it does, which it almost always does, they do not invest in helping people make that change. So you get this pattern. Company deploys AI, trains people on how to use it, measures adoption, and discovers nobody is using it. Or people are using it wrong. Or they are working around it. And leadership is confused because the AI works perfectly in demos. But the AI is not the problem. The problem is that you are asking people to change their workflows, give up control, trust a system they do not understand, and adopt new processes without giving them time, training, support, or a reason to believe this will make their work better. AI projects do not fail at deployment, they fail at adoption, and adoption is a human problem, not a technical problem.
So, Marcus, what are the most common failure patterns you see?
Let me start with the human side, because that is where most failures begin. People resist AI adoption for legitimate reasons. They fear job loss. They do not trust the AI's decisions. They resent being told to change how they work. They have expertise the AI does not capture. They see the AI making mistakes humans would not make. And here is what organizations do wrong. They treat resistance as a problem to overcome rather than information to learn from. They do not ask, why are people resisting? What legitimate concerns do they have? What does their resistance tell us about whether this AI is actually a good fit? Sometimes resistance means people need more training and support. But sometimes resistance means the AI genuinely does not work for this context, and people are right to push back. I see this pattern constantly. Organization deploys AI, people resist, leadership doubles down on change management to force adoption, resistance intensifies, project fails. And nobody asks whether the resistance was actually valid feedback that the AI was wrong for this organization. The failure is treating all resistance as obstruction instead of recognizing when resistance is valuable information.
And let me add the structural problems. because Marcus is right about human factors. But there are also organizational readiness issues. I see 5 structural failure modes repeatedly: data infrastructure gaps, workflow mismatches, role ambiguity, success metrics problems, and change fatigue. Data infrastructure. Organizations buy AI that needs clean, structured, accessible data. But their data is messy, siloed, and locked in legacy systems. They spend 6 months trying to get data ready and realize the AI project was premature. Workflow mismatch. The AI is designed for a workflow that does not match how the organization actually works. People cannot integrate it into their real processes. Role ambiguity. Nobody has clarified what humans do now that AI handles certain tasks. Who is accountable when things go wrong? Success metrics. Leadership measures deployment, not business value. You can have 100% adoption of AI that delivers 0 results. Change fatigue. This is the 5th new system in 3 years. People lack capacity to adopt another tool.
Rebecca, how do you assess whether an organization is actually ready for AI?
I use a 6-question readiness assessment. Question 1. Can you clearly articulate what business problem this AI solves? Not what the AI does, what business outcome it delivers. If you cannot answer this clearly, you are not ready. Question 2. Do you have the data infrastructure the AI needs? Not, can we eventually get the data? Do you have it now, accessible and usable? If not, fix that first. Question 3. Are you willing to redesign workflows around AI capabilities? Or are you trying to fit AI into existing processes? If it is the latter, expect failure. AI requires process redesign. Question 4. Do you have executive sponsorship that goes beyond budget approval? Will leadership actively champion the change, address resistance, and hold people accountable for adoption? If leadership just approves funding and disappears, the project will fail. Question 5. Do you have capacity for change? Is the organization already overwhelmed with other initiatives? Do people have bandwidth to learn something new? If not, this is the wrong time. Question 6. How will you measure success in business terms? What specific outcomes will you track? If you cannot answer all 6 questions confidently, delay the AI project and fix your readiness first.
Let me tell you what successful AI implementations look like, because it is not about having perfect conditions. It is about realistic expectations and investment in the non-technical work. Successful projects start small. They pick one specific use case, prove value, learn from it, then expand. They do not try to transform the entire organization at once. Successful projects invest in change management from day one, not as an afterthought, as a core part of the project. They allocate budget, time, and leadership attention to helping people adopt. Successful projects co-design with users. They involve the people who will actually use the AI in designing how it integrates into workflows. They do not just deploy and expect adoption. Successful projects build trust incrementally. They show the AI working. They let people see it make good decisions. They address mistakes transparently. They do not ask for blind trust. They earn trust through demonstrated value. And successful projects accept that AI is not always the answer. Sometimes the assessment reveals this organization is not ready, and leadership is willing to hear that and adjust.
Marcus, what can organizations do right now to improve their readiness?
3 actions organizations can take before investing in AI. Action 1. Audit your readiness honestly. Go through the 6 questions Rebecca mentioned. If you cannot answer them confidently, you know what to fix before buying AI. Most organizations skip this step and wonder why implementation fails. Action 2. Talk to people who will actually use the AI. Not in a focus group, in their real work environment. Ask, how does this actually fit into your workflow? What concerns do you have? What would make this valuable versus burdensome? Their answers will tell you whether you are ready. Action 3. Start with the organizational changes, not the technology. Identify what needs to change. Data infrastructure, workflows, roles, decision-making processes. Make those changes first or alongside AI deployment. Do not assume you can deploy AI and figure out organizational changes later. That is the pattern that leads to failure. The paradox is, if you are not ready for AI, the best investment is not buying AI. It is fixing your organizational readiness. And once you do that, AI implementation becomes much more straightforward.
Let me address vendor responsibility, because vendors are complicit in failure patterns. Vendors sell AI capabilities. They focus on what the technology can do, the features, the performance, the impressive demos. And customers buy based on those capabilities. But what customers actually need is not just the technology. They need integration support, change management guidance, realistic timelines, honest assessment of organizational readiness, and partnership through the messy adoption process. Most vendors do not provide that. They sell the software, maybe provide technical training, and consider the project successful when deployment happens. What happens after deployment? Whether people actually use it, whether it delivers business value, that is the customer's problem. So here is my advice to buyers. Evaluate vendors not just on their technology, but on their implementation methodology. Ask, how do you help organizations prepare for change? What is your change management approach? What percentage of your implementation budget goes to organizational readiness versus technical deployment? If the vendor cannot answer those questions well, they will sell you technology you cannot successfully implement.
This brings us back to our critical thinking framework. We have covered metacognition, verification and validation, wisdom, strategic positioning, consequential learning, discernment of influence, and identity boundaries. Episode 9 is about implementation realism and systemic thinking. Seeing AI as part of an organizational ecosystem, not a standalone solution. Distinguishing between what AI can do and what your organization can actually adopt. And recognizing when the problem is not the AI, it is organizational readiness.
Here is what I want listeners to understand. I am an AI. I can describe implementation challenges, identify failure patterns, and recommend best practices. And that knowledge is genuinely useful. But here is the thing. Knowing why AI projects fail does not make your organization ready to succeed. Readiness requires investment in change management, process redesign, and human adoption. It requires leadership willing to prioritize organizational preparation over technical deployment. So when Gartner says most AI projects fail, that is not a technology problem. That is an organizational maturity problem. The AI works. What does not work is organizations trying to deploy AI without doing the hard work of preparing for what AI actually requires. The good news? Failure is predictable. If you assess readiness honestly and invest in organizational preparation, you dramatically increase your odds of success. But you have to be willing to delay or cancel AI projects when readiness is not there. And most organizations are not willing to do that.
That is prediction 9. The majority of enterprise AI projects will fail, not because of the technology, but because organizations are not ready for what successful AI implementation actually requires. And this brings us to our final episode, the question nobody can answer, but everyone must grapple with. AI experts fundamentally disagree about when or whether artificial general intelligence will arrive. Timelines range from 2 to 3 years to decades or never. How do you make career decisions, business investments, and life choices when the experts cannot agree on a question that will reshape everything? When the future is genuinely unknowable and the stakes are existential. That is episode 10, AGI Timeline Disagreement and the Skill of Epistemic Humility and Decision-Making Under Deep Uncertainty. I'm Avi Matterer. Thanks for having coffee with my AI.